Well, welcome. Glad you are with us. I'm Reverend Greg Klimovitz, the Associate Presbyter here with the Presbytery of Philadelphia, and we'll do some introductions of the folks that are on the screen in a moment. But we are here to talk a little bit about what's going on at two of our congregations that are participating in the Vital Congregations Initiative of the Presbyterian Church USA. In 2019, our presbytery was invited to join this initiative of church revitalization. And we'll share more about what that means in a moment. But we have 11 congregations that are currently participating in this venture, in this pilgrimage of congregational assessment and discernment and creative exploration. Those churches are Ben Salem, Carmel, Crossroads, Elkins Park, Glading, Holy Trinity Bethlehem, Levittown, Summit, Warminster, and two pastors on the screen today are from Mount Airy Presbyterian Church and Olivet Covenant. We'll hear from them in a moment, but this conversation really is not intended to be a marketing of a particular initiative. So breathe easy for those of you that are listening in. Do not feel like this is going to be a pitch or a sell for you. Our hope is that this conversation is going to speak solidarity, encouragement, and maybe even inspire you a little bit to hear from your own colleagues and peers doing ministry on the front lines as we continue to linger in this season of creative ministry. But we do want to share a little bit about Vital Congregations, so you do have some context about what our pastors on the screen, as well as the other 9 churches, are participating on. So you can learn more if interested. You can go to our website at presbyphl.org and check that out. So before we go any further, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney Wilcox, who has been serving as the moderator of what we call our discernment and strategy team of the Vital Congregations Initiative, walking alongside a group of people who come alongside our churches as they're participating in this program. So we're grateful for her ministry alongside us. So Courtney, if you could share just briefly a little bit about what Vital Congregations is, so we can get that bit kind of out of the way so folks have context, and then we can hear from our pastors.
Sure, Greg, thanks. So the Vital Congregations Initiative, there are 11 congregations, as Greg mentioned, in our presbytery who are working to enhance their self-understanding through this process. It offers an opportunity to explore doing a new thing in a program that is non-prescriptive. These churches assess themselves by capturing their unique stories, confessing their realities, and discerning the Spirit's call to action. They look at strengths and growing edges around the 7 marks of vital congregations, an example of which is ecclesial health versus unhealthy dysfunction, toxic environments, obsolete and irrelevant buildings. Around this 1 mark, they explore their understanding of why are we a church community? How are we a church community in practice? They reflect on their clarity in mission, core values to ministry, passion and joy in being the church, and that their budget reflects their values, vision, and ministries. It goes on from there as they make assurances that they're all aware of how decisions are being made, that church members are stakeholders in process and procedure, and are valued voices in envisioning. They examine the why and how of being church together. This is just one self-assessment, not graded or judged, but simply a method of self-exploration, a snapshot in time. VCI also works to build up relationship and community within the church and among our VCI churches. To support this process, there are 2 cohorts that meet monthly, led by facilitators Carla Jones-Brown and Ryan Balsam. Each church also has a discernment team member, as Greg mentioned, assigned to it. In addition, there is the opportunity for national involvement through training and periodic Zoom vital conversations with other VCI churches. These are exciting times for our churches. We are doing a new thing. And I want to end with something from Revelation. See, the home of God is among mortals. See, I am making all things new. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned, Courtney, I as a part of this newness, is how the pilgrimage of Vital Congregations, if you will, talks a lot about confession. And one of the things that we've encouraged our churches a lot, and I'm sure that Pastor Anna and Pastor Peter will speak to this in some way, but is confession in our theological tradition is not only speaking about the ways that we've missed the mark, as in acknowledging the ways that maybe we stray from God's dreams for the world, God's intentions for the church as it bears witness to the gospel in our time and place. So confession has that piece. Where did we miss the mark? But confession is also an affirmation of faith. We affirm what it is that we believe to be true. And so a lot of vital congregations is also that, like, where are we seeing the work and witness of the church affirming what it is that we believe to be true? And so there's a lot about this confessional rhythm of this pilgrimage that we're a part of with these 11 churches that reminds us that we need to hold those two things together, confessing in terms of missing the mark, but all the more as we go through this, where are we finding the affirmation of faith and witness in our communities too? So Courtney, if you could kind of lead the way and just introduce our two pastors here and give them a chance to share who they are.
Sure. So I'm excited to introduce Peter Ahn, who is at Olivet Covenant, and Anna Grant-Borden, who is at Mount Airy Presbyterian Church. And before we start, do you just want to say one thing about you or your congregation or your summer?
Yeah, I'll start. Olivet Covenant Presbyterian Church is in Fairmount, Spring Garden area. It's a small congregation. When I say small, it's really small, like 20 gathering on Sundays. And we are about to celebrate our 165th anniversary.
Praise God.
We have, right. I was ordained, I was ordained about 3 years ago here, with a 6-month contract initially, and Pastor Jin Kim preached at my ordination. He said it's something about long-term relationship, and we're talking about like 6-month contract, so it was kind of awkward. But here I am after more than 3 years.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that's me.
Great,
That's
Peter.
us.
Thanks. Reverend Anna?
I'm at Mount Airy Presbyterian Church, which is in Mount Airy, Philadelphia. We recently moved from Mount Pleasant and Germantown Avenue to Mount Pleasant and Anderson, about 5 blocks down the street. Mount Airy is an old church. It's 100 and something. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's more than 150. But right now, we are really trying to redefine ourselves and really trying to clarify who we are and what our mission is. We are a small church. We have about 33 members, and just like Peter, about 20 people come to service, and it's an integrated congregation, but it's a very warm family congregation.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay.
Thanks.
First of all, one of the things I love hearing from both of you is when you describe your congregation, and you even talk about the size of it. You don't talk about the size of your congregation from a place of lament. You talk about the size of your congregation from just a characteristic of who you are. And a lot of the folks that are talking about the present future of the church are reminding us that there's a nimbleness of our smaller congregations that allows them to bear witness in their community in a unique way, instead of constantly trying to chase after pew filling, saying, this is who we are, come and join us, and we're glad you're here. So
Yeah, I think it's the mindset behind the numbers. I think when you say 20 people, if you're a church planter mindset, that's a different thing than declining mindset.
I love that.
So let me walk into our first question, and Anna, maybe you can start with this.
Okay.
So the question for both of you is, what led your congregation to join this venture in revitalization?
Okay. Well, I came to Mount Airy about 3 years ago, and when I came, Mount Airy had gone through a lot of hurt up to that time. it seems that Mount Airy was a very vibrant congregation. At one point, they were hosting homeless. They had once a month they have homeless people come in, and they would have them, live there for weekends, and they would feed, and they were very active in the community. And then the congregation aged, and so it got smaller, and they didn't have the youth, the people to do the work. And so the congregation got smaller, and they were unable to support their building, which was very large. And so they sold their building to a developer and rented space. And in renting that space, the size got small. All they had was the sanctuary and the lower lobby area. And so they could no longer do the things that they did in the community. They could no longer do a daycare and a preschool and host people in need. And so the congregation was kind of, I wouldn't say depressed, but, just feeling like they weren't able to do what they used to do. And so there was this need to revitalize, this need to bring new life into the congregation. And at some point we came to the conclusion that we were going to have to move, because the developer was developing condos that were going for $1 million. And he himself, was not really doing much to the area that we were renting. And it became very obvious that he had other plans for that area. And so we moved to a new building 5 blocks down. And the difference in the neighborhood where we were dealing with people, a lot of people that were in the poverty, designation. There were different kinds of needs. So now we're in a community where the median income is like $61,000, and 71% of the people have some college education or even graduate degrees. So we're in a different context than we were before. And actually, it's good, because we are trying to reinvent ourselves as a congregation. And one of the marks that we're looking at is this outward incarnational focus. And that seems to speak to us, because we are in need of not focusing on ourselves, but we've been replanted into this new community. And so we need at this point to explore that community and how we can make us like one with them. So at this point, that's one of our focuses. And the other focus that we have is the empowerment of servant leadership. Because as we have moved into this new place, and the pandemic has had a lot to do with what's going on, we have 3 new members, and we had a baptism, which is like a real sign of vitality. And the new members, 2 of the new members, are very excited about being a part of redefining the congregation. And so what we're finding now, as we do this outward focus, that we have gifts and talents within our congregation that could serve this new community. And so that's where we are now. That's one of the focuses that we have. And also finding people within the congregation who want to do something. Like I have a young woman who wants to do a sewing class. Another person wants to start a yoga class. We're looking at an initiative for children, because we found that in studying the demographics that the majority of children in the area are either under 5 years old to 9 years old. And so we're looking at starting a children's church, so that as we go out into the community and meet people, we can let them know that they can bring their children to church, and there'll be something there for their children. So this is where we are.
Anna, that's really exciting. I get excited when I hear you talk about things that are going on at Mount Airy. Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, when I started here at Olivet, I think it can be put into different kinds of framework of thought, but I find it helpful that we see it from the perspective of transitional ministry. When I first began at Olivet, even before I began our contract, I asked for training in transitional ministry because this is a congregation without a pastor for a couple of years after almost 20 years of ministry before that, my predecessor. So it's not just small church. It doesn't have to be a small church. It could be a large church. Every congregation needs to renew vision and their collective sense of call. And every congregation needs to go through this. And particularly in a small congregation, we need to ask the question, why are we here? Why are we here? I mean, why in Fairmount, Spring Garden area? And what does that mean? What does that mean for us? So vital congregation, to me, it's just a one way of expression, one way of doing transitional ministry. And it just provides tools for that I need at this time. But it's really the conversation. It's really long overdue. Probably like many other churches, large and small, we don't always talk about why are we here? What are we about? Churches can run autopilot for a while, doing Sunday school, doing outreach or fellowship. But I think we need to sit back together as a congregation and ask, hey, what are we about? What's this about? And make sense out of it together. And it also provides leadership, the session, to listen to the congregation and actually properly represent the congregation. So I find it a needed opportunity.
I appreciate both of you sharing it. One of the things that came to my mind, Pastor Anna, when you were sharing about the way that your congregation has organically shifted over the years, is this parable that Jesus uses of the mustard seed and how it's the smallest of seeds, but then it grows in terms of its ability to provide home and shelter and respite for the birds. And I think so often that parable that Jesus speaks about gets confused about how the mustard seed is planted so that we grow numerically. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that seed is planted and that tree grows, but it's still a tree, but its reach is for providing a sense of belonging and nurture for the creatures of the earth. And it sounds a lot like what's been happening at Mount Airy, as well as Olivet Covenant, as you ask this question about why do we exist. But then it leads me to think about something that, so I've tried my hand in gardening and I'm terrible at it. I killed a mint plant this summer, wow, which is next to
That's
impossible.
Almost impossible, yes.
Right, yeah. And the main reason why I think the mint plant died was, one, we didn't prune it, and we just let it sit in the same place for the entire summer when it was super hot. So it literally got fried. And my wife and I were talking, we were like, we should have just moved it to the front porch. If we would have moved it, instead of just keeping it where it always was, it probably would have continued to thrive. And I look at what you all are doing. It seems like you've been willing to ask that question of how do we as a mustard seed church continue to nurture and care of our community? And you're like, it's okay if we just move. and so I wonder if you could share a little bit more about that in the sense of storying your work and witness as the two congregations, especially as you lean into this question about where have you seen the mark of vitality in your church, story of vitality, as well as where have you seen a story of struggle as you've made these shifts?
Hmm. Well, I like that what you said, and it's true. If we had stayed where we were, we probably would be dying. Um, and so moving does make a difference. It has made a difference. Um, Give me a minute. I'll come back.
Yeah, I like your mustard seed
Hmm.
um, image there. It's the scripture said it's a tree, but it's actually not a tree. Mustard is actually a shrub, and it says a
Mm.
tree, but I believe it's an Old Testament reference to tree being where birds will come and sit, meaning it's a
Hmm.
reference to the to the nations, to outward sort of a thing. So, and they're very invasive everywhere. Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway.
And we have struggled through the pandemic, trying to keep the church feeling like a community because we've been struggling to stay a church for the last year. And, but meanwhile, while we were struggling to stay at church, actually, we've been kind of leaning into this effort as well, even though we haven't spoken it and said it. And I love this that bush, the mustard seed bush, because that's really it's really what we want. We want to spread out in that community and become a comfortable place for people in the community. And looking at the community, it's not such an obvious need like it was on Germantown Avenue. It's not so obvious that there are these single mothers that are struggling, and we can help them with car fare and we can do all these different things. You don't see it. You don't see what the needs are, but knowing who the people are, we're trying to find a way to offer something that they would need. One of the things that we're looking at is bringing in speakers, talking about advocacy for disability and um, you know different issues that people may have, and we'll find out more what the issues are when we're going to start in September in that door to door. We decided to wait till December for the door to door, but we'll find out more what the needs are. But one of the things is, how can we facilitate what you need? That's basically, what we're looking at. And it's not about membership. You had this conversation with someone just last week about, trying to bring more people in. We're not trying to bring people in.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to go out and
Mm-hmm.
be.
Mm. I love that. I love that. And like Peter mentioned, the shrubbery of that parable is true, because there is a sense that it is moving. There's a
Mhm.
movement behind it versus being bound and set. And that sounds to be like what you are doing in both your congregations, both by asking the why question: who are we? Why do we
Mhm.
truly exist? Even in the midst of our decline, why do we exist? And then for you at Mount Airy, it's okay, not only why do we exist, but where do we exist?
Mhm.
And it's not in a particular space, but it's in the community. And then how do we continue to help uncover what it is that would truly meet the needs and respond to the longings for good news and support and belonging in our neighborhood? I
Mhm.
really appreciate you both sharing that. I know Courtney has a final question for us.
If you had one word of encouragement or holy nudge for church leaders who are listening in, what would it be as it pertains to this venture toward vitality?
Hmm.
So a word of encouragement or a holy nudge toward
Well,
vitality.
Don't let what you see discourage you, because things that are seen are only temporary. The things that are not seen are eternal.
thank you.
Nice. Thanks, Anna.
Mhm. I think I'm gonna continue on that long-term decline sort of a mindset. Um, I think there's a difference between wishing and hoping. I remember Cornel West at one point saying, "There's a difference when you're wishing, you're just wishing things in your mind, but when you hope, you do what you're called to do anyway, regardless of outcome."
Mm-hmm.
So moving to hoping and really focusing on what we're actually called to do, despite whatever the conditions are. When I see people with hope, when I see people telling me, "Hey, we should do this,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's a dragging feeling for a pastor to say, "Hey, we should do this," right? But I start hearing from people, "Hey, outreach is my middle name. What can I do?" Right? So, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Peter. I think this is the first time in my ministry that I've had people say, "Hey, I like to do this. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that?" And I think that workshop that you did with the yes and, or I think it was yes and, has really helped me because people have said, "Hey, can we do such and such?" In my head, I'm saying, "Oh no," but now I said, "No, yes, yes," and yes and so I see life in people feeling comfortable that they can come forward, whatever it is they're thinking, and yes, let's figure out how to do it, and I also see life in people's faces. Since we've been back from the pandemic, there's just something special about them walking into the sanctuary on Sunday morning, and that's life. Well, I want to
Okay.
thank you. I was very apprehensive about this.
Right.
And Peter, I thank you for your honesty. You ministered to me as you spoke, so I'm really grateful.
Anna, it's really encouraging to know that we're not alone, and
Yes.
hearing your story.
Join me in a word of prayer. Lord, you call us to be a people of resurrection hope, unbound by the fear of death, a people called out of darkness into vital and resurrection possibilities for what it means to be a faithful and relevant witness to the gospel of Jesus Christ at this time and this place. We are grateful for the faithfulness of the saints of Ben Salem, of Carmel, of Crossroads, of Elkins Park, of Glading Memorial, of Holy Trinity Bethlehem, of Levittown, Mount Airy, Olivet Covenant, Summit, and Warminster. We are grateful for their boldness to intentionally make this pilgrimage of discernment and discovery, understanding that your plans and vision and hope for them and for us is far greater than anything we can see or even imagine. May they continue to embody and strengthen the marks of vital communities of faith, marks focused on deepening our understanding of who we are because of whose we are. Marks focused on deepening our understanding of the Word, not simply for ourselves, but in an effort to strengthen our becoming the Word in the world. May your powerful Holy Spirit continue to breathe life and hope into their witness. We entrust their every step and every breath into your hands. In the powerful name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.